Everyone, it's Laura Morell from Elementary Literacy. This video today is to help you understand a little bit more about our new virtual program, ELF at Home. So who are we? As you're probably well aware, we're Elementary Literacy. We're a collaborative nonprofit that uses proven programming and research-based approaches to help close the literacy gap. Our goal is to support schools, empower children, and advocate for progressive policy. As many of you may know from the update that went out, we have Julie Smith is our executive director. She's been at the helm of the organization for nearly 2 years and has oversaw many adaptations, new collaborations, and innovations. Julie brings over a decade of government experience creating social programs and policy solutions for many different aspects of society. And we're very happy to have Julie on board with our organization. So the ELF team consists of Melissa McKinnon, who is the acting ELF program manager, Janice Walker, who is responsible for curriculum development, and me, Laura Morell, who's the program manager and the manager responsible for innovation and continuous improvement. So again, as many of you know, the ELF is a volunteer reading program offered to students in schools across the province. The success of our program is largely due to the support of our dedicated volunteer base. Through the hard work of our volunteers, lives have been changed and our elves really do make a difference. So we make a difference that can be felt and measured. Schools overwhelmingly report improved reading attitudes and learning after our program. Overwhelmingly report students increase in their reading confidence. Last year, before COVID shut down schools, we had over 700 volunteers who mentored 860 students in both our Anglophone and Francophone programs, which equates to over 20,000 hours of additional literacy instruction provided by you, our elves. So as you know, elementary literacy is a volunteer reading. The ELF program is a volunteer reading program. ELF pairs train community volunteers to work one-on-one with young readers who could benefit from additional support. So that hasn't changed. But what is new this year is that our organization will, for the first time, train, pair, and support volunteers and families to virtually offer the ELF program to referred children with a brand new online program that's been developed since March. Referrals will continue to come from the schools we're supporting, and parents will now register their children on our new website. And if you'd like to check out the new website, I welcome you to go to elementaryLiteracy.ca. So to get into a little bit about the new program itself, the content of our new program, I like to introduce this slide by a very well-known expert and researcher in this field, and her name's Nancy Young. And this slide is really just to show our volunteers the reason why we've switched from the former ELF program to a more structured, systematic, and sequential type of program. And those are the pillars of a structured literacy program or approach. And that's because 50 to 65% of students, this type of approach is essential, that learning to read requires this code-based explicit instruction. We've learned a lot, we've done a lot of research, and we really feel that with consultation from the Department of Education that this is the best way for us and for our volunteers to support young struggling readers in our province. So in the spring, we started developing a new online program so that we can continue to support students during COVID and beyond. As I mentioned, our changes were made in consultation with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development and our trusted partners in districts and schools. We are aligned with their direction and have learned with them and through this experience. So we did pilot ELF at Home this summer with 38 full-time students from all around New Brunswick, and 48 part-time students from the Boys and Girls Club in St. John, who were divided into 2 cohorts of 24. And those students only participated for about 4 weeks. So it was really just a chance for us to test how this program can be embedded into after-school programs, for example, or settings like that. So what we found with the pilot was that students were very engaged in the online program and learning. Absenteeism was very low, and parents were very pleased with the structure, process, and content of the lessons. Early indications from an outside impact study show that improvements were made for almost all children who participated. So as I mentioned, the Elf at Home program follows a more structured, sequential, and systematic approach. We shifted from trying to support all of the pillars of reading acquisition at once to focusing on two of the early pillars, which are phonemic awareness and decoding skills, while continuing to practice and develop fluency and comprehension. We used the University of Florida Literacy Institute, which is a renowned leader in this field, to help guide and inspire our work. And we also plan to create a complementary vocabulary and oral language program in the next 2 years. So something else that's new on top of obviously the delivery and the content is we've also developed screeners. And these screeners are designed to help the volunteer understand more about where the student may be struggling. So this is something that the volunteers will take their students through online before they begin the lessons. And it's also designed to help the volunteer decide which lessons will be the most beneficial. So the screeners, with our help and our training, and even with consultation with our staff members, will be able to help personalize and tailor the lessons to ensure that we're helping to fill gaps in that student's knowledge and really, as I said, personalize their learning. And we will have much more detail cover this in detail at the basic training. So as I'm sure you're all wondering, what are the technology requirements for this program? So in order for a volunteer to successfully engage with the Elf at Home virtual program, you are going to need a high-speed internet connection. You're going to need a laptop or a desktop computer. At this time, mobile devices are not compatible, and tablets, unfortunately, at this time, our staff is not able to support volunteers in their use of tablets. We've begun to explore this option, but all of our training and all of our tutorials and all of the documents that have been created to support volunteers are based off a volunteer using a laptop or desktop computer. So unfortunately, we're not prepared to support volunteers with tablets at this time. Volunteers are going to need a Gmail account. They are going to need a webcam and the microphone ability on their device that they're using. And a little bit about the Gmail account. This is so you can access the full suite of services and invite users who don't have a Gmail account to meet with you. So the platform that we're using to deliver this is all done through G Suite, meaning you will be using Google Calendar. You will be using Google Drive to access the lessons that we've created, which are all done through Google Slides, which for those of you who are familiar, it would be Google's equivalent to Microsoft PowerPoint. And you'll be delivering the lessons through Google's online meeting platform, which is Google Meets. So using all Google products where it is free, and it is what our organization uses as a virtual organization, this is just going to help us not have to provide many sets of directions for multiple user cases. As I'm sure you know, this has been a very large endeavor for our staff to take on. And so in order for us to support our volunteers as best we can, we want everybody using Google, which is, and that's all the training and the directions that we've created are all based on that user case. So it may sound overwhelming, but we do have a training designed to help, and we are going to be there for our volunteers and help walk you through it. But I will say that a level of comfortability with technology is going to be a real asset for this program. So if you've really only ever used email, you may just want to wait until the new year when we have kind of gone through the first round of training with everybody and support, where our staff may be better equipped to support those users who are, still a little bit uncomfortable with technology. So in terms of expectations, The volunteer commitment hasn't really changed, but we have changed the language in which we use to describe the volunteer commitment. So it's still two 45-minute sessions each week. But we're asking, instead of 10 weeks, that volunteers will do 12 weeks. And that's really because what we want is we want volunteers to complete 20 instructional sessions with their child. So similar to the 10 weeks, but we've made it 12. The additional 2 weeks have been added to allow time for you to take your student through those screeners that I mentioned. So 22 sessions, two sessions for screeners, and then 20 instructional sessions. So very similar to the prior commitment. It's just that what we're asking is that, it's not about just completing 12 weeks, it's about completing the 22 sessions. So if you're sick, if somebody goes on vacation, if you're away, we just ask that you continue and you come back and you complete the 22 sessions, and however long that takes, but that is what we're asking volunteers commit to, is completing the sessions and not necessarily completing a number of weeks. So that's the time commitment. Obviously, we're also asking all tutors and families will need to have a high quality internet connection and a desktop or laptop computer. That's for the volunteers. Students are able to use a tablet, but for volunteers, for you to be able to properly screen share and access the notes and be able to display the lesson to your child, it's much, much easier on a laptop or a desktop computer. Our new program is fully electronic, so there is no physical kit anymore. So if any of you have an ELF kit in your possession, we do ask that you return it to a local library as soon as possible. We plan on repurposing some of the items in the kit, especially the books, but we will no longer have a physical ELF kit. All of the games, reading instruction, and books are contained in the virtual lesson on Google Slides, along with very clear instructions. So again, we are going to go through that in detail at the basic training, but just know everything you need to support your student over the course of your 22 sessions is going to be available online through Google Slides, through a scripted program. So that covers the time and the internet computer expectations. The other expectation is privacy and a quiet space at home. So both volunteers and families need to have a quiet space for the session with minimal background noise or distractions. That is something we found in our pilot, that if there was a lot of background noise or commotion, it wasn't as effective. So we do recommend that both the volunteer and the student have headphones in, that they're in a quiet space where it's just where it's really just them and the supervisor of the student. I should mention that that it is a requirement that a student is being supervised by somebody in the home. They may not be sitting directly beside the student, but families are not allowed to participate unless they can commit to having somebody in a supervisory role while the child's being tutored. So just to talk a little bit about the benefits of virtual tutoring, where we know this is going to be a learning curve. It's a learning curve for us, and it's going to be a learning curve for our volunteers, where it is such a departure from what ELF had traditionally done, but there are so many benefits to virtual tutoring. So from our summer pilot, we realized that there were, quite a few additional benefits for the ELF at Home program. Because sessions are outside of school hours, so this means that there's more flexibility for the timing of the tutoring session. So it's meant to be at a time that's convenient for both students and the tutors. There's flexibility in start and end dates. So, we don't have to, we no longer have to have strict fall, winter, spring sessions. The plan is for our organization to do kind of continuous intake of students and volunteers, so that people can really start at any point during the year. For parents, as I mentioned, parents are in the room, or I should say caregivers, not necessarily parents, but caregivers are in the room during the session, so they get to hear the activities the student is working on, and hopefully can reinforce the concepts when they are reading with their child. It eliminates the need for caregivers to pick up after school and when the bus wasn't an option. Both parents and tutors found the new model convenient because it did eliminate travel time to and from the schools. We feel that volunteers may find this a bit easier where they don't have to travel to the school in the middle of the afternoon anymore to go to their ELF lessons. Really, they'll just have to sit down at their computer and log in. Another benefit we found was that where the caregiver is required to be there, that they're able to monitor their child's behavior and ensure that they're engaged. It removes some barriers for families in terms of not needing childcare to go drop their child off or pick them up from tutoring, but we do recognize that this will not work for everyone. And we are especially aware of how it may impact our rural communities who may not have access to high quality internet connection, but we're working diligently to help find a solution to this. So please know, but there are lots of benefits, lots of flexibility with virtual tutoring. So just a few more kind of notable changes in the program before we will leave you with a link to review a lesson. We have made a change to our criminal record check policy. So at this point, ELF will now be responsible for matching the volunteer and the child together. In this way, where we are responsible for matching the volunteer and the tutor, and that you will be meeting online, we are requiring that all volunteers will have to renew their criminal record check and vulnerable sector screening every year. So if you plan on volunteering this year, we recommend getting this process started right away. So go to your local police department or even check online first, because I know the city of Fredericton is now doing online applications for your criminal record check. I will leave an opportunity in the email to contact our staff to request a letter that you can take with you to your local police department. But if you plan on volunteering, please get your criminal record check done right away. And what you're going to do is submit a copy to our organization that we will then attach to your file in our database. And then this will trigger an email automatically to you where you're going to be able to register for a training session on our website. This email will not be triggered until you've submitted your criminal record check to us, either via a scanned copy, or you can take a photo and attach it to an email to us. I will leave directions in an email for you for this, but that is the new process. And also, we're going to be providing 2 required trainings. So one is the basic training, and that's going to cover the new program content and the new virtual games and activities and the online library we are using for student-led reading from Flyleaf and program screeners. So all of that new content, that new information, those new processes are all going to be covered in our basic training. That's going to be done online. We're also going to do a secondary tech training. So we've decided to divide them in 2 so that volunteers didn't feel overwhelmed, that they had time to digest information. We're going to do another supplementary hour to an hour and a half training on helping volunteers with the new processes in terms of connecting on Google Hangouts, setting up meetings with their students, accessing the lesson on Google Drive, and screen sharing. So we're going to cover that all in an additional training session after people attend the basic training and want to continue. The other process that's slightly different that I think is worth mentioning is that when we do begin to match volunteers and students together, after you've received, you've done your training, we have a student for you, the process is now going to be that we will, as long as the volunteer and the family is comfortable with this, we will be putting the volunteer and the guardians or caregivers of their student in contact to set up a schedule between these 2 parties. So rather than elementary literacy acting as the middleman to liaise between the two groups, we're going to ask that the volunteer and the family talk and communicate and set up a schedule that works for both people. This way, hopefully, it will allow for some flexibility. So if you need to change a time, or you have an appointment, or your child has a doctor's appointment, or a hockey practice, or what have you, that hopefully there'll be you'll be both be comfortable enough with communicating these everyday life occurrences that you can still build in time for your 2 sessions every week. And ideally, this is the same 2 days a week at the same time. But just knowing how busy people are and how busy families are, if the volunteer and the family are communicating about the scheduling, it should allow for the 22 sessions to be achieved easily and as quickly as possible. So hopefully in 12 weeks. But if anybody needs to take a break for any reason, you're able to communicate that with the other person and find a replacement time or an additional, you can make a change to a schedule. So I thought that was worth mentioning as well. So this kind of concludes the presentation. I know there's a lot of information in here. I know Julie Smith did send an update that covered a lot of this stuff, but I just thought sending this video might help clear up any questions. I'm going to send you this presentation as well. So if you want to view a lesson, just click on this link and it will take you to a sample lesson that you should be able to view and go through. And just know, I don't know if the speaker notes are, if you're able to access those in this version, but just know that this program is scripted and there's tons of speaker notes. We're going to go over all of that at the training, but I just thought that was worth mentioning. And yeah, so we thank you so much for your interest and your support over the years in the former ELF program. We are really, really excited to launch this new program. We are really looking forward to connecting with our volunteers and training them and showing them all the amazing work that we've been working on since March. This has been a big change for all of us at the organization. We have pretty much we have made changes to almost every single facet of our operations in our program, but we really feel like this new program can be a game changer in our province in terms of early literacy instruction. We can't wait to get it in your hands and see what everybody thinks. So if you have any questions, you can respond to me on this email, Laura Morell. I do encourage you to CC the ELF program manager, Melissa McKinnon, on the emails. Melissa will be, and our other staff member who I wasn't able to introduce, but Melissa Taylor, will be coordinating volunteers this year. So you may be receiving some responses from them. I'll also leave a link to sign up to receive a criminal record check letter if you do want to continue with training. We have training dates set for next week. So if you do happen to have an updated criminal record check and you want to attend a training session, please respond to the email and send me a copy of your criminal record check so that we can get you registered for next week. If not, just know we are planning on further training sessions in November. So get your criminal record checks, get them submitted to us. We can't wait to see you all. And if you have questions, let us know. And we're really excited to share this all with you. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing from everybody.